Hello, Mrs. President.
Oh, hey guys, I didn't hear you come in. Okay, so let's get this meeting started. First, we're going to talk about each book separately. We'll start with How to Tame a Wild Tongue.
So, How to Tame a Wild Tongue was about losing one's language while trying to adapt to a new culture. It was written by Gloria Anzalda in the 1980s during the Cannon Wars.
Nice research, Isabel.
Woo! Back to the discussion, ladies. After reading the story, who would the audience be?
I would say Hispanics because the story has a lot of Spanish words, so it will be really difficult to read without knowing any Spanish.
I agree, but this can also be directed to anyone of any culture, really, who's having trouble code switching, since they can relate to the story.
I see. That sounds about right. So the purpose of this is that Anzaldo is showing that it's okay to speak the way you want to because it's a part of who you are.
I agree with that completely. It's even as if she's trying to tell us not to be afraid to show a part of who we really are.
Exactly. At the end of the story, Anzaldúa says, "When other races have given up their tongue, we've kept ours."
So what would you guys say the tone is like?
I would say it's serious in most parts when she's trying to explain how hard it is to adapt to an unfamiliar culture, then encouraging and inspirational when she's trying to get her point across of how we should show who we really are.
I agree. Like when she uses a serious tone. In her quote, "Citizens who grew up speaking Chicano Spanish have internalized the belief that we speak poor Spanish. It's a legitimate, a bastard language." And here, when she uses a more encouraging and inspirational tone, yet the struggle of identities continues, the struggle of borders is our reality still. One day, the inner struggle will cease and true integration take place.
Okay, let's move on to how the Garcia girls lost their accents.
So this novel was written by Julia Alvarez. It was published in 1991 but takes place during 1959 through 1986 in the Dominican Republic and United States.
This novel shows four sisters trying to adapt to the American society.
What would be the narrator's tone?
Well, since there are more than one narrator, the tone frequently shifts depending on the narrator. But most of the time, the tone is very casual and personal.
As for the purpose, I would say that it's to show exactly how hard it is to integrate into a different culture.
Both stories definitely had elements of that, and both did a good job at illustrating the struggle.
The girls in each story were fighting against the possibility of losing and forgetting their old ways.
Let's say if Anzaldo and Alvarez were to meet each other, what do you think they would say to each other?
I think Alvarez would agree with Anzaldúa and say that on one side of us, we're constantly exposed to the Spanish, and on the other, we hear the Anglos incest clamoring so that we forget our language.
This is very true in many cases for people whether we're Hispanic or not.
We are all here to fit into a country containing so many different cultures.
Yeah. What would Anzaldo say to the four sisters?
She would definitely comfort his sisters and say, "I understand your frustrations."
She would even encourage them to embrace their roots.
Does Anzaldo's essay written in the 1980s seem more dated than Alvarez's, or does it hold up?
It holds up because it's a topic that carries out throughout the generations.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2015, and we can still relate to so much of this on a personal level.
Does it matter that Anzaldo was not an immigrant and instead an American citizen?
It doesn't matter. Whether you're an immigrant or American citizen, you're still going to have some experiences where you can't adapt to different customs.
Yeah, I agree. Even though Anzaldúa was an American citizen, she had trouble code switching and trying to fit into American society.
What do the two writers seem to be saying about culture, language, and identity? Do you agree with it?
They're basically saying that even though you have to adapt to a new culture, that shouldn't stop you from showing people your roots.
Yeah, and they even give an example for how you can do this by speaking your language freely without guilt or remorse, just like Gloria does, and how to tame a wild tongue.
So what did you two think about actually reading the book? How did you feel reading it?
I mean, it was a good book, especially because of our parents' past and our life. Like, we can relate to the book. So it's really relatable and easy to understand them.
Yeah, since like I'm Mexican American and my mom's, she actually immigrated here, I relate to both of these stories a lot. Especially with the Spanglish and How to Tame a Wild Tongue. It's really relatable to me.
In my situation even, I could say that, or I don't even know if you guys could say this, but that we could maybe relate more to Anzaldúa and our parents maybe even more to Alvarez.
So you're saying it's the language part of these stories that is relatable. How, since all three of us are Spanish speakers, we learned Spanish from our parents, we grew up speaking Spanish. The difficulty we have with speaking Spanish in a society that mostly speaks English is what's relatable, and how,
Yeah.
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Would you agree with us?
Yeah, definitely. As a fellow Spanish speaker, I agree. I would say these were both really good reads, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Well,
Very.
great job today, ladies. I think we've covered enough for today. What we'll be reading next month is Nip the Buds, Shoot the Kids. Woo.
Can't wait.
Okay, so I'll see you both next month. Don't forget to stop by a little bit later today to pick up your copies of next month's book. And today's meeting has come to a conclusion. So,
See you next week.
Thank you,
Bye.
Miss President.
bye-bye.